She's been running your body. I'm just
This is one of those.
Albert, can you sit down, please?
Okay, but we're not going to encourage people. Okay, thank you. Ready? All right, let's do it. Okay, that's ready. And then they can go out the back. Let's do this.
And then we're looking at those tattoos up and down.
Okay, so leave that spare one. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to 2023 Greenlight Pitch Showcase. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, upon whose lands our city campus now stands, as well as the Bundjalung and Tabaga peoples, upon whose ancestral lands some of our regional teams reside. We acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging, as the traditional custodians of knowledge for the land. But we are so excited to have you join us, such a fantastic audience traversing the many industries that harness algae. We have researchers, academics, people from the startup ecosystem, and some climate tech investors here tonight, as well as those joining us from the live stream at home. Thank you so much for supporting our Cohort 4 teams.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with Greenlight, we are the world's first algae biotech accelerator program funded through the New South Wales government. Across the 12 weeks, our 5 teams were supported with boot camps and workshops delivered by subject matter experts, as well as scientific mentorship and business mentoring. The teams also received equity-free funding to enable them to build their prototypes. We couldn't do this without the incredible support of our guest speakers, the Climate Change Cluster technical staff, and our Deep Green advisors. So we'd like to say a big thank you for David Muller-Weisner, Dr. Kate Scarderfield, Bronte McHenry, Patrick Sieb, Amanda Primer, Anita Dawson, Alan Lowe, Lucia Benner, and Dr. Alex Thompson. To the scientific mentors, the teams gained so much valuable information from your expertise to help them with their businesses, and they are very grateful for the time and knowledge you gave to them. So we'd like to thank Andre Hirden, Mikkel Kim, Nature Podar, Lakshmi Krishnan, JB Reina, Nandini Ravi. And lastly, we would like to say a big thank you to Emma Earley, our business mentor. Her guidance, support, and shared experiences has been invaluable. Thank you. For being such a great mentor, you are exceptionally talented. The inspiration, encouragement, and time you gave to all the teams has been above and beyond expectations. So if you could all please give a round of applause to everyone.
Been such a privilege working with our teams, but before you meet them, please welcome to the stage Executive Director of Climate Change Cluster and founder of Green Biotech Hub, Peter Ralph.
Greetings all. This is one of the highlights of my year when this happened. So this is the 4th series of Greenlight. And we're so privileged that the New South Wales government invests in this, and this is an opportunity to grow the industry. As an academic, I kind of look at the opportunities, we work with industries, but how to get these startups going is critical, and this is what we're most proud of. So the people that are the mentors have come from C3, the Climate Change Cluster. So the Climate Change Cluster has a range of teams that operate across both mitigation and adaptation. Most of the mentors have come from the adaptation side, the mitigation side. And so having the reason why the Deep Green Biotech Hub is called the Deep Green Biotech Hub as opposed to the Green Biotech Hub is because the technical advice and the access to the universities gives it the deep tech. And this is the important part of the link between C3 and the hub. So a lot of you have just been in our Algal Business Summit for the last 6 or 8 hours, and you've covered and we've spoken a lot about the opportunities with algae. I don't want to keep us away from the startups, but I hope everyone in the room is a complete convert to the opportunities of phototrophic algae. I think the most important thing here is the bioeconomy, and this is where these startups are going to be contributing, and they're going to be opportunities to grow the bioeconomy. And that's where the government is going to be looking for employment opportunities and impact. So the bioeconomy, I hope, is going to be a real beneficiary of all these startups. The opportunities with algae are immense, and tonight we're going to hear 5 groups, startups that are working in the space. But in case you're not completely convinced, essentially today, I think somebody said algae can solve all the problems of the planet. We're pretty close to that with the broad range of products that can be produced using algae, and that's both seaweed and microalgae. But the most important thing here is these products are critical for addressing climate change. So the more products that we can make here that are currently derived from fossil-derived carbon and now are going to be derived from atmospheric-derived carbon, this is going to solve part of the problem and decarbonise industry. The other side to it is where the products are going to be coming from. This is going to be a really significant game changer for transforming the industries. To finish with, the importance of the hub is threefold. So we can offer opportunities for engagement, but I think the real strength of what the hub does is the innovation and the access. And then before, as I mentioned, it's the access to the knowledge of the experts, but also the opportunity for driving the innovation. So this is where the hub has its real strength, and tonight we're going to hear from 5 exciting groups. And for me, the most exciting thing is I saw them in the beginning. I want to see their evolution. I want to see how the accelerator has transformed their thinking, how they pitch, and where their products are going. So I'm looking forward to hearing from all 5 of the groups now. So thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to hearing.
So it's time, very exciting. How it will work is that the teams have prepared a 5-minute pitch, and then there'll be an opportunity to throw to you in the audience for 1 or 2 questions. If you do have a burning question, help us out with a concise one, and through the lens of the fact that our teams are in the early ideas to prototype stage. And for some of them, this is their first time pitching to a live audience. So to kick us off, we have one of the most energetic, positive, enthusiastic people, John from Recambrian.
Emma. I appreciate the introduction, and I'll try to live up to the name you just gave me. All right, let's see. Let's get started. Our company is Recambrian, and we are growing algae to feed farmed fish. Now, this is really exciting, but our real motivation is people in the world, because it's no secret that there's going to be 10 billion people pretty soon, and pretty soon we're going to need to have 70% more food in order to feed everyone. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's almost doubling the global food output in less than 30 years. This is like a really, really big challenge. And our perspective is that efficiency is really important, which is why we really like fish. You see, when you feed a fish, it's 3 to 10 times more efficient at creating healthy, sustainable meat than other animals. And what's fascinating to me is that the market dynamics are exactly mirroring the efficiency of animal production, where fish are not only the fastest growing food sector today. In the next few years, we're going to be producing more fish than any other animal for the first time ever. But there's a challenge. We have to feed fish, at least many of them, other fish. And overfishing is already a problem. We can't keep catching fish from the ocean to ensure that aquaculture grows. So let's take a second and look at the 5 options of what we actually can use to feed the fish. Well, I've categorized these as things that grow on land: plants, bacteria, and insects. And while these are useful, unfortunately, the types of proteins and fats that are found in land plants just aren't right for fish, at least many of them. Now, seaweed and microalgae, they grow in the ocean, but seaweed just doesn't have enough protein. You can use it as an additive, but not a major ingredient. Microalgae is the only thing with the full nutrition profile to feed healthy fish. But farmers today, they literally just can't afford it. Half or more of their budget already comes from just buying the feed ingredients. And algae is at least 3 times too expensive. It's just a non-option for them. Okay, so let's take a second and think about why this is. Our major large-scale production systems have sunlight that hit a large pond from the top, and the light dissipates super quickly, meaning most of your algae are in the dark. We all know algae need sunlight to grow. Okay, this is where we come in, and this is why we're really excited. We're developing a technology called Skylight, where we take sunlight, divert it through our custom lens system into a light guide. We put that light guide underwater, and we distribute the light way more effectively to the entire depth of the pond. Now, not only do we distribute it more effectively and have control over it, we can get the ponds way deeper and increase the algal productivity by, we think, up to 10 times if we're doing this well. Now, this has huge implications on cost, because our vision is to build a large farm with many ponds growing different types of algae, where we can blend them together into custom feed formulations for different species of fish. And we believe that with the Skylight technology, we can sell at or below the current cost, making it not just the most nutritious option, but the most affordable one. So who's doing this? Well, it's of course myself, and I have a background of about a decade of experience helping young startups take products that are either benchtop functionality, prototypes, or even sketches on a piece of paper, and turning them into commercial manufacturable products. So I got the tech side kind of covered. My co-founder, Valerie, is probably the most experienced person in the world in large-scale outdoor production. I mean, she's not only worked at and managed some of the largest facilities, she's helped build some of the largest ponds that have ever existed. And we think that together, we have great synergy. So what have we actually done? Let me go over this super fast. I'm running out of time. We spent a lot of time on economics looking at a million numbers in Excel to really understand the cost of production. These black boxes here are computer code, where we spent a lot of time trying to understand how to predict how algae grow in different environments with computer models. And of course, we've done a few experiments, some small scale experiments, some up to 15-liter experiments that helped us build our confidence in our theoretical estimates. Okay, but we're struggling a little bit today because we need a little bit more money for our next experiments. We need a few more people to help us go faster. And we need a network of people in aquaculture to help us navigate our commercialization strategy. So I'd appreciate if after this, if you have any advice or just want to talk about what we're doing, come talk to me. I'd appreciate a conversation.
Stay up here, John. Does anyone in the audience have a burning question for our first pitcher? And Nicole will bring a microphone to you.
That 8 to 10 times sounds brilliant. Have you done an experiment that gives you huge confidence that could work in a scale environment?
So, I mean, we haven't worked up to the scale. The largest we've done is 15 liters, like I said. Our approach was, let's use LEDs to emulate some sunlight in different environments and make sure that when we use our computer models to estimate what's happening, that there's at least a reasonable correlation between what we predict only on a small scale as well as a large scale. So we're making a jump from that small scale experimentation using LEDs to a sunlight driven system right now.
What's the market size for fish feed, and how much do you think you can address or service?
So the total global market for all fish feed is about 75 billion US. We are defining our target market as the proportion of fish protein and fish oil that cannot come from things that are not waste products of other fish manufacturing, which is about 4.5 billion US. That's our target.
Thank you so much. Well done, John.
Let's go through the next teams.
Okay, so next up we have friends, housemates, and now business partners. And you may have been treated to their product on the way in. Please welcome Zach and Jack from Phycologic.
Okay, everyone, welcome to Pitch Night. Thanks for coming. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jack.
And we are Phycologic, and we're helping buildings breathe organically.
So our journey began back in 2019 when Zach and I sailed out to Lord Howe Island. And although it was an amazing trip, we experienced some challenges along the way. We knew that if we could overcome these challenges, we'd be in a pretty good position for whatever came next. Next ended up being a global pandemic, and like you guys, I'm sure we had to find other ways to adventure. So at the time, I was working for Sydney Aquarium and also working for an investment group with interest in algal biotech.
And I've been working as a sustainability engineer in the building space, sort of guiding design teams to achieve their environmental aspirations. Here's a photo from one of the projects I worked on, which some of you might have seen because a lot of research came through UTS. This is a breathing stand. It's essentially an activated green wall with fans blowing behind it. And it was boasting some pretty significant air filtration capabilities. And there was a lot of hype around it.
And at the time, I was reading a lot about different algae projects. And the C3 Young Henry's bag reactor sequestration project really sparked our interest. We thought if 400 litres of algae was as efficient as a hectare of Aussie bush, then surely we can incorporate microalgae into this breathing stand to make it more efficient. So this was our first concept. This was our microalgae bioreactor that had some plant structure at the top. But the deeper we dug into the Greenlight program and the microalgae world, we found it was going to be a lot of maintenance. And it was also still with this maintenance going to have a high risk of contamination and culture collapse. It was also going to be difficult to harvest, so we thought we'd change tack and have a look at macroalgae. So when we started working at home with these small-scale experiments, we found there was less maintenance, lower risk of contamination, and it was really easy to handle and harvest. And it started to look really cool. So we came up with our first product, the sea tree, which you guys may have seen on your way in. And yeah, it runs on less than $1 a day of energy, and it grows native alga species in 420 litres of seawater. Yeah.
There are many benefits to the sea tree. Indoor air quality is generally 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. Not only does the rapidly growing alga sequester carbon dioxide in the space, it also metabolizes volatile organic compounds, which cause short-term discomfort, like headaches and some other serious long-term illnesses. Biophilia is a term that refers to humans' innate connection to nature. It's known by fostering this relationship that it improves health and well-being. And from the responses that we've had tonight of the sea tree, everyone seems to love its natural aesthetic. It's also a great conversation starter, which promotes social cohesion around the sea tree. These 2 points kind of become a massive draw card for people, for building occupants and owners to try and bring their employees back to their space and build culture within their space as well. Something that's a real issue in this post-COVID digital world.
And yeah, our business model is just construct and install these tanks and service them as needed. Use the biomass to eat locally on site, to fertilize, or to partner with a cosmetic or bioplastic manufacturer.
So Australia is actually leading the world in sustainable construction, and Sydney has the most Green Star certified buildings in Australia. So for this reason, we're going to try target Sydney's CBD, particularly in the office building spaces. And we see the sea tree being recognised as an innovative biotechnology by the Green Building Council to assist with their certifications of projects. We'd also love to bring life into other spaces that support the arts, history, and transport. As you can see today, we can do short-term installations as well. We're in talks with a tech conference coming up shortly, and also an East Coast music festival.
And we have future potentials that we want to explore as big macroalgae walls, a smaller domestic unit, and improve the efficiency of our first prototype. So if you want to come chat with us after this with any ideas, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know about you, but I think I can't wait until the domestic units are available to maybe put one in my apartment. I've got a question over here.
That was really great. I loved talking about that too. If you're looking for a microalgae that's a good alternative to macros, spirulina is fantastic with the right nutrient ratios. It can be a good alternate to it. It's easy to harvest and doesn't usually stick, and it's a good addition to your awesome tree.
Thanks for the comment. Yeah, we did look at spirulina, and it was still going to take us every 2 weeks to harvest. Can you get quicker than that?
You can harvest them.
Sorry, this is good banter.
You can harvest them like once a month or once.
Oh, okay.
And they're very easy to harvest. So most microalgae are a nightmare to harvest because they're so small, but spirulina, you can just do it with a cheesecloth, any basic kind of harvesting.
Yeah.
And you can also set up automated harvesting systems. They've got other systems that are out there on like little house scale type things, but a big one like that would produce just as much, if not more, oxygen. And so it could be a good kind of look.
Cool.
But yeah, applaud that one. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one in the middle here. Thank you, Nicole.
Have you thought about how often you'll have to change the water?
So it is seawater, but we're hoping that we'll only need to attend it once a month, if not less, just to top it up from any evaporation. And we'll have a dosing pump with nutrients. So hopefully we don't have to go at all. We're still really early stages and we're not too sure how often we'll need to go.
We've also been growing it with a UV filter, which has prevented a lot of contamination, because we had a couple of contamination issues before putting that in, and that seems to help it a lot.
Sorry, just one more on top of that. Has it ever gone reproductive?
Sorry?
Has it ever gone reproductive, fallen to small pieces and disappeared?
No, it hasn't done that completely. Not in this big tank yet, anyway.
This is why we have in-person events like this, the conversations back and forth, the ideas. If you have more of that, please keep it coming. We probably have time for another question if anyone has one.
So I just want to ask, how long have you ran like one container for? Like,
Yeah, that's a good question.
the limits, yeah.
So we harvested a small amount of ulva that we're growing in there, and it's probably been growing for about 3 to 4 weeks, and it's more than quadrupled in size.
Yeah.
So, and I think we can probably still push the density a little bit more. We've only dosed it twice with nutrients, and I think we could go more, but we have also done a bit of seawater change, which has some nutrients in it itself.
Okay, no, cool. We work from a microalgae background,
Yep.
where we work in continuous cultures. So it'd be interesting to see how you can get.
So we're going to plan to do a continuous culture and just harvest a portion of it, and then we can reuse whatever the ulva is going to be used for, and then just let it grow and try keep it in that sort of accelerating growth phase.
So just as a suggestion, maybe you want to do the opposite and give it the minimal amount of nutrients, because if your purpose is to have a beautiful bubbling system and you don't want it to grow too fast, but you want it to look stunning, which it does. Well,
Yeah, thanks.
you've got options.
Yeah, there's this balance that we're trying to go between air filtration and visual aesthetics. So the faster it goes, the better the air filtration will be. But yeah, so we got to learn about that, and we'll continue to grow it and see.
Mine's not a question. Mine's more like perhaps maybe a suggestion. The bioreactor looks fantastic. I think it will look really good with maybe as an installation for Vivid next year.
Thank you very much.
Lots of great ideas, and hopefully you will see them at many, many festivals coming up. Now, next up, some incredible people who really have epitomised hard work, dedication, and being on the ball with their startup. I've been so privileged to be part of their journey. Sisters in life and in business, Steph and Phoebe from East Coast Algae.
Thank you, Emma. We are Steph and Phoebe, sisters and co-founders of East Coast Algae and the co-creators of the Culture Cube, inspiring our future innovators to think outside the cube. We are from Bundjalung country in the beautiful Northern Rivers, and we've had the privilege of growing up by the ocean and exploring rock pools. It occurred to us quite recently that we are possibly one of the last generations to grow up blissfully unaware of climate change and the impact it has for our future. While we consider ourselves extremely fortunate, the same can't be said for today's generation, as almost 90% of school-age students are saying that climate change is very real and caused by human activity. This is resulting in a wave of eco-grief and climate change anxiety among our young people, with the vast majority feeling sad, afraid, anxious, powerless, and even guilty when confronted with the thought of climate change and what it means for their future. We, among many other Australian communities, are experiencing these feelings in our own backyard, with last year's Lismore flood devastating our region's schools, teachers, and students. But it's not all doom and gloom. There is a groundswell of determination to prioritise sustainability, particularly in our young people.
3 out of 4 Australian school students are asking for more hands-on learning opportunities to overcome climate change in real-world settings. We're dealing with a very challenged yet optimistic generation of young people, and schools are increasingly aware that they're dealing with a generation that wants and needs more. We know for a fact that young people cannot be what they cannot see, and this is exactly why we have created the Culture Cube. So the Culture Cube is a compact microalgae farm that brings the algae industry into the schoolyard. It's incorporated into the student experience with a cultivation kit and supporting learning materials. And we actually make it out of recycled IBC tanks that we've salvaged from landfill ourselves, and it's run on solar power. So it really is the epitome of sustainability. It enables students to experience the entire microalgae production process as they create their own products, like dried algae flakes for their aquaponic systems and biofertilizers for their school gardens. Here, students become algae farmers, product developers, animal nutritionists, and engineers as they turn to nature for solutions and create their very own circular economy. Our role as their industry partner also enables students to see beyond the walls of the classroom as they start to plan their future outside of school. We have a network of 134 schools in New South Wales that are committed to implementing diverse STEM programs. And based on our current pilot project with our partner school, a unit price of $7,000 for a Culture Cube would see an annual revenue of $670,000. And to supplement this, our customers can also purchase membership subscriptions that allow them access to online learning resources that help them incorporate the Culture Cube into their school. So we've been really inspired by other industry partners that are out there pioneering the landscape of STEM education. And our research interviews have shown that there is definitely a real need for diversity when it comes to these climate resilience programs. So we're actually on the ground with our first partner school and pilot program, working with their STEM teachers and students on the feasibility and functionality of the Culture Cube within their school. We'll soon be joining a panel of industry partners as part of a teacher enrichment program within our region. And we will continue to leverage our expanding network of experts as we look towards building those supplementary online resources. So Phoebes and I are both kids of STEM education with very different but very complementary backgrounds, from marine science to business and IT. We bring a great deal of diversity and a profound level of respect for one another that's enabled us to build our business together over the past 3 years. As we continue to build a really robust program, we're looking to connect and collaborate with STEM facilitators that are building curriculum for a greener future, other industry partners that are aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals and open to sharing their insights, as well as researchers that are working with student interactions in sustainability programs. So join us as we innovate, inspire and thrive alongside our future heroes.
What's your cost of goods for 1 cube?
So currently 1 cube at 7K.
That's to build one, you mean?
Or to build one?
Yeah.
Sorry.
At the moment, we're still working through our build from our pilot program, so we haven't secured down our cost of goods as yet.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I think it's a very inspiring idea, a very good idea. However, product comparison, so why using the cube instead of other photobioreactor?
Yeah, so obviously the cube isn't the most efficient shape when it comes to microalgae, but when you're a startup and you have access to free tanks, you kind of use what you've got. And it definitely fits in well with our aesthetic of cycle and being in Byron. It fits well. But yes, obviously the goal would be to have the most efficient system, but also working with schools, efficiency isn't our top target. We're making enough to keep them busy and they're enjoying making products. So yeah, it's in the works.
So I'm going to sort of flip the conversation around from earlier, and instead of going spirulina or microalgae, which is complex and difficult, have you ever thought of flipping it around and going not to saltwater but to freshwater macroalgae, thinking about the Pacific biomodel perhaps?
It's definitely crossed my mind. We ran into issues with harvesting with the microalgae in this system, and particularly seeing the boys with macroalgae and how awesome that is, and wanting to sort of stick to that freshwater path. Definitely have thought about it. But I mean, I'm not sure I know a great deal about it, so maybe we can have a chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had one question. So, well, maybe more a suggestion. So it sounds like it's a fantastic idea, but have you considered, if it's low enough price point, kind of pitching to even households or small farms to like develop their own chook feed or even like, yeah, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from the get-go, being applicable to as many industries as we could is something that we've always thought about. And we've kept that in mind as we've designed it, and it's definitely something that we'd love to branch out into down the track. And hopefully we have a system that can be applicable to all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Hi. So you currently have this this program actually running in how many schools?
One.
In one?
Yep.
And so you're reliant upon a teacher being responsible for owning this and running it within their school curriculum?
So we're lucky enough to be partnered with a school that has an official STEM facilitator, which really takes the pressure off teachers who are quite...
Okay, and is that common in most public schools to have a facilitator?
So there's a STEM in Schools program statewide in New South Wales, and each region does fall under a certain group of STEM facilitators, and I think it really depends on what schools they end up including in their network.
Right. Now, from the photos, these look like primary school children? Yes? Or
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so the secondary school program is more intense, more developed than the primary school program?
That's a good question. I think down the track, particularly when we start developing curriculum resources, they will definitely align with the different age groups. But I think the plan is to have something that we can apply to all different age groups in one way or another.
Well done, ladies. Thank you so much. So we're sticking in the Northern Rivers. We have the wonderful team from Byron Bioreactor Technologies.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, I'm Carl.
And I'm Alex. And tonight we'd like to introduce you guys to a new era in microalgae cell counting, using microfluidic technology and the power of your smart device. Welcome to Identify. So to start, I'd like you to meet Julia. Now, Julia's production manager for a local algae cultivator. Now, this means that she's in charge of adjusting the pond's operating parameters to make sure that her algae always have optimal conditions to grow. Now, to do this, she needs information, which she gets from analysing daily samples taken from her ponds. But she has a problem. You see, part of that analysis is the cell concentration count. And this currently is done using a method invented in 1874, where the cells are manually counted and the process is repeated using a clicker and a microscope. So this is causing a massive bottleneck in her receiving her results, which is affecting her ability to react and is causing, in her opinion, a reduction in her overall yield. See, Julia has a vision, right? She wants to be able to sample and get her analysis done right there at the pond. She knows that if she can do that, she can potentially improve her overall yield, right? Now, she's looked at the other automated cell counters on the market, and what she's found is that while these use AI and camera systems to image and count the cells instead of doing it manually, they can't really be taken out into the field. So she gives us an Identify a call. She says, hey guys, I saw you present at the Greenlight pitch the other night, and I want to know if you can help me realise my vision of in-field counting. I tell her, absolutely, Julie. You see, with the Identify system, we utilise the power of microfluidics. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically the science of moving tiny amounts of liquid through small channels. So using that and your smart device, we're able to supercharge speed, accuracy, and make our system in-field capable. So as you can see from this chart here, both the benchtop automated counters and the manual counting methods both require more work to achieve higher accuracies. So in the form of either loading and unloading your slides or doing your actual manual clicking. See, the Identify system blows the roof off that equation. Using our microfluidic technology, we're able to pump your sample right through our system to the camera. So once you load your sample and press go, you can go off and start preparing your next sample. Identify will image, count, and repeat as many times as you would like. Wow, that sounds amazing, she says. But all that technology, it's got to be expensive. Well, I'll tell you what, Julia, we're leveraging the power of your smart device and next-gen micro pumps. And we intend to bring Identify to market at a price point under $5,000. Wow, she says. Sign me up for your first prototype. And just like that, Julia has managed to save time, cost, and achieve a greater yield using the Identify system. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of innovation. Over to you, Carl.
Thanks, Alex. The global cell counter market in the life science industry is valued at $2.8 billion, indicating its disruptive size. BBT's initial focus is on the microalgae industry worldwide. Our go-to market strategy involves digital marketing, direct sales, and strategic partnerships. We seek collaborations with microalgae industry companies to expand our reach. What sets us apart is a higher accuracy, portability, and fast results at an affordable price point, unlike the top 6 companies that dominate the market. Greenlight interviews have driven significant progress and valuable insights, ensuring a perfect product market fit. We continue to develop AI software for cell counting. BBT, our successful 3.5-year-old algae biotech company, emerged from the 2019 Greenlight Accelerator program. and is now a core partner of the Marine Bioproducts CRC as a $1.2 million 3-year project focused on a modular biofilm bioreactor system. Our team includes myself, Alex and Brent, who play integral roles in management, engineering, electronics and software integration. We seek connections with algae researchers and climate tech investors interested in algae work, in lab workflows and investing in identify our biofilm bioreactor algae hive. Collaborating with you, we're excited to launch Identify and make a lasting impact in the market. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I want to be like Julia. Do you want to be like Julia? Who's got a question for Carl and Alex over here? Thank you.
Hi guys, great presentation. So hopefully you don't mind, I've got 2 questions. Have you considered selling this to the wine industry? I know that they do malic bug counts and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, one industry at a time, I suppose. But yeah, there's lots of opportunity out there for cell counting, and so yeah, we'll definitely take that in consideration, and we'll develop it for the microalgae industry first, get that right, and then expand the product offerings from there.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so I guess my next question is, does this kill the cells? Because if you're from a cell culture perspective and someone who also counts a lot of cells all the time, you want to be able to put your sample in there and still be able to do, you know, multiple different assays to look at your cytotoxicity results. So obviously you want to be putting the cells into your cell counter before you do any of those to actually have a healthy growth system as well in those flasks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that just goes through the microchannel. It doesn't impact the cells because it's going at such a slow flow rate. So yeah, it comes back out and back into another container. So there's no cell loss from that.
Hi, what an exciting product. Great presentation.
Thank you.
I noticed on your side you had done, doing, and I can't remember the third one. What's that timeline?
Well, that accounts.
Finished.
Yeah. Well, after we have a chat with everyone and you know, we're looking for investment, and so it really comes down to investment to how much we've got the people, we've got the right people that can develop it.
Prototype, and so the development time between your prototype and your final product is 12 months or 18 months or?
Yeah. So it's probably refinement of the hardware and then the software, but the software that's sort of capable of doing that, and so we can just manipulate that to fit the purpose.
Right, and what sort of funding do you need to get to that final product? Do you have a number?
Not quite yet. So yeah, we're still working on exactly how much we need for that. We could, well, if we raise, say, even just $50,000, then we can run it through the MVP, New South Wales MVP program, and then we can run it through the MB CRC program, and so get match funding there. So we can turn $50,000 into $200,000.
That's great, thank you.
Thanks.
We have one down in the back as well, but I'm loving the intensity of these questions because it shows that maybe after this there might be even more conversations to be had to stop people using these manual clickers.
Yeah.
Hi, Carl. You know who I am. Just a question. Do you see a potential to integrate the algae hive and the identifier so you've effectively got a self-monitoring algae hive?
Well, we haven't really thought about that. They're sort of two separate projects, but potentially it could be integrated with the algae hive to self-monitor, really, to realise that the optimum growing conditions. Yeah.
Just wanted to ask, how much sample would you need to be able to count? And does the count give any other information like viability of the cells?
The exact amount you need is quite small because you dilute the amount that you got, and because you're stopping and starting it, it's counting at different levels up into that. What's the point? Just that convergence points where you know exactly what your density is, and then you could run another sample and then just double check that way. So it might take 5 minutes to double check your count. So only a couple of mil would be fine.
Is your moat primarily on the software side or primarily on the hardware side?
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Is your moat primarily on the software side or on the hardware side?
We've got most of it, the software development that needs to occur now. We've got most of the hardware sorted, and so, software development is what's sort of required there.
I meant in terms of what protects you from competitors, right? Fluidics are normally a disposable product that anyone can buy and quite easily copy.
Yeah.
So do you have a moat on the software side?
A moat on the software side? Well, we're still developing that, and so once we integrate that in there, software, it's hard to put a moat around software. I mean, you can only get an innovation grant protection for like 8 years on software, I think, and it changes so quickly that not many people really, that's the only thing that we can really sort of protect is the software, because it's integrating, different hardware components that are already available. So it is a little bit harder to protect, but as long as we stay out in front of the marketplace, then it's a competitive place out there.
Could I just ask, this is an unusual environment where your target audience is probably here.
Yeah.
How many Julias are there that count cells? I've got no idea what cell counting is, but how many are here? And then how many of you would actually think this is
Yeah.
All of you.
For those who can't see, we've got a bunch of hands over here nodding very strenuously.
Oh, right. Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, just from I'm not in venture capital, but I know a few VCs. You're kind of in the middle ground when you pitch at that sort of amount of market opportunity. It's not huge. It's not going to excite anybody. So, if you could think about what is the much bigger addressable market.
Yeah.
The excitement of a VC, particularly if you want to ask for a bit more money.
Yeah.
To go harder and go faster, they'll get excited if you can deliver 100x what their investment is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we get the technology right for microalgae, and as been suggested, there's other market opportunities out there, and so that's where we can expand into and quite quickly.
So 2 questions for me. The first is, how are the cells counted? I didn't quite get that in the presentation. So what happens there? And the second is that if you've got this wonderful idea, would you not consider going beyond manual sampling so that you remove Julia completely and you actually make
that's
that
right.
a bit of a
controversial.
She's part of the new generation workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. So ideally, having some sort of automated sampling. I come from a mining background, and it's always automatic sampling. No one's going out there and collecting the samples. It goes through a thing. And so having that set up in your ponds, I think, would be ideal. And a system like this, I think that could pump the fluid out, process it, is probably where we would like to end up, I think. But then there's also that, and that could be a branch for us, but there's also that, all your researchers and your algae enthusiasts out there who want something that's low cost that they can actually get some good results from. I think that would be really useful. It'll still be really useful for them. So maintaining that as a possible branch, but probably not diverting all of our attention onto that immediately. Like Carl said, we want to get this right. The AI for the system, we haven't, obviously, as Carl said, we haven't developed it yet. It'll just use probably similar to what's out there already. It'll image and it'll just count, because we'll know the width of the channel, we'll know the volume. We're not expecting too many conceptual issues in getting a count. But yeah, obviously we're still working at that, and extra funding will definitely help us to understand what our problems are a little bit better, for sure. It's an image-driven system, absolutely. And you'll see we'll have it set up over there so you can come and actually try it with your smartphone. You can put your phone on it and actually see what. Yeah, come and try it out, for sure.
Yeah,
Well, that pretty much just answered my question.
Oh, great.
Being able to look at the algae quality. We're in a space where we're feeding algae to larvae, so we need to make sure the quality of the algae is
Absolutely.
absolutely available for feeding. So counting is one thing, but checking on quality is the other thing.
Yeah, and that's
But
part of what we're trying to incorporate, I suppose, is yeah, we want to focus on one thing at a time and get the count right, but you know, could we build a profile? Could we actually start to identify whether we have fluctuations in health and things like that to try to pick up extra issues? I mean, that's something that we definitely want to focus on ongoing. But for now, we want to just get a count and have that count validated and make sure that we can do it right, and then keep moving forward. And obviously, we've got a lot of exciting different pathways that we can look at with this device. So we're very excited.
Well done. Thank you both so much.
Thanks, guys.
Believe it, we only have one team left. We've seen 4 amazing ideas, and to bring us home is a person who is the perfect blend of technical and creative, Albert from EcoBoba.
Well, so my name is Albert, and I'm the founder for EcoBoba, and today I want to talk a bit about communities and water. So just a show of hands, who loves swimming? Awesome, so do I. I love swimming, especially in open water, because it just gives me that attachment to an ecosystem and a community. And communities rely on water. They rely on waterways in 3 particular ways: for sustenance, for recreation, and for transport. However, the way we've used water, or particularly human pollution, over the years has accumulated in waterways. And over the last 100 years, that has really limited our ability to transport because of the safety of the waterway itself. And this map of Sydney's sediment, of Sydney's catchment, is just a map showing lead sediment across Sydney's catchment. As you can see, anything above 200 is considered something that's unsafe. Pollution across Sydney's catchment is insane, and communities, it's now becoming incredibly unsafe, and it's an expensive cleanup for communities. So we spend over $2 billion a year on cleaning up pollution in waterways, and 70% of Sydney sediment is at some grade of toxic. That has long-term impacts to our community. So what can we do about it? So what we worked on is something called EcoBoba. EcoBoba is the future for sustainable water remediation for long term. So what is EcoBoba? EcoBoba are effectively algae jelly balls. So what we do is we trap algae in jelly, we bag them, we throw them in wastewater, and it sucks up industrial pollutants like a sponge, and it becomes relatively clean water. So how does EcoBoba work, or what do we do? So what we do is we fabricate EcoBoba using a process called spherification. So spherification is a food chemistry technique that we use in high-end restaurants and dining. What we do is we then bag them, we throw them into water reservoirs. So these could be wastewater tanks, these could be rivers or lakes, and that sucks up industrial pollutants like a sponge. We then take those bags out, we throw them in salt water, it releases those pollutants, and we rinse and repeat. So why is EcoBoba so good? EcoBoba is incredibly fast acting. So the results, from the testing that we've done during Greenlight, we thought, okay, maybe it'll take maybe 2 hours or so for these results to actually kick in. We saw results within the first 30 minutes. So EcoBoba is also sustainable. So it's entirely made from algae and seaweed products. So it's also completely biodegradable as well. So our long-term vision is to clean up waterways across the world. And Sydney sediment right now is one of the most toxic in the world. But this problem exists in every single major city across the world. So we're targeting this problem on 2 different fronts. The first is environmental remediation, so cleaning up the mess that's already there. That, we found, is roughly an $80 million market year on year. The other is looking at sources of leakage into the ecosystem itself. So that itself is roughly another $100 million a year. So how do we deliver EcoBoba to people? So we're looking at offering it as a service model, where we scope out the size of the project, we then provide the remediation service, We then take the ecoboba and saline back, and then we extract it from metals for resale or materials for resale. So there is a downstream product and sell opportunity. So why is ecoboba different? Well, ecoboba is one of the very few ways that takes wastes that is beneficial to an ecosystem. So it provides a positive environmental impact. Other options either damage the ecosystem or environment, or contribute to accumulation of wastes. So things like, for example, just chucking a bunch of seaweed in, seaweed may absorb it, but it's now still in the ecosystem. It hasn't been removed. Ecoboba is a way of taking it out of that system, and we can use it for other purposes. So our team comprises of engineers, scientists, and international relations partners. So Krish is actually helping me sign a deal with the London government to remediate the Thames and Lake Windermere. So but we need help. So the first part is on introductions. So I'd love intros to people who are specialists in the field, industry specialists, and introductions to municipal councils or people who make decisions in municipal councils around wastewater and water management. I'd also love industry collaboration and research collaboration as well to show and roll out ecoboba. And we're also looking at raising $500,000 to be able to build and scale the operations for ecoboba and to hire people to be able to scale it. So let's work to bubble away water pollution with ecoboba. Feel free to chat with me after the contacts are on the slide. Thank you so much.
And how great is the name, ecoboba? So fantastic. Who has a question over here? Thank you.
That's an awesome use of microalgae.
Thank you.
What species of algae is your preferred species? Because there's a multitude out there that can do removal, but there's, yeah, I mean, like microencapsulation and then washing it off is a difficult task.
It's an interesting question. Actually, a very question as well. Good question as well. So in Greenlight, we did a test of 3 different scalable algae species. So Chlorella reinhardti, Chlamydia reinhardti, Chlorella, and Picrochlorum. Mainly, I chose these 3 because reinhardti is quite well studied in scientific literature, but the other 2 are often used in commercial production. And out of the 3, reinhardti seems to be the best performing species for this application for now. But what we're looking at is looking at local species across different areas. That way it's not, so if a bag breaks, the beads get released, it becomes food for the aquatic environment as opposed to polluting the environment.
So here's a question. So is it only used as like have you only applied it to water, like treatments? You haven't applied it as a topical, like a spray or something if you were to do hard surfaces? Like in the region, around the region where I am, lead poisoning on hard surfaces is actually a real big problem in a small community in South Australia where PB levels in children is quite high. So they want to find ways to reduce that. So if it could be applicable to, you know, other regions than just say in a water supply, maybe as a topical, like, yeah, spray or something.
Would that be for things like paint surfaces, or would that be for?
It's like if children are out, like just children toys outside, wash them and clean them before you bring them inside. It's in the air, it's in the environment. So, yeah.
That's a very interesting approach, because I was also actually looking at it for purifying blood as well as a downstream application. Yeah, no, that's an interesting approach. I'd be interested in looking at a topical application for it.
Thank you. One in the middle here.
Ecoboba, I love that name. It sounds like a bubble tea.
That's exactly
jelly or something. It sounds delicious. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm thinking with Ecoboba, I mean, it's basically a water remediation process, and I'm thinking maybe you can pitch to a community or a suburb or a council that's near the water, like maybe the Brooklyn, where there's slight hints of pollution, even Meadowbank, and maybe offer them as a free service, and then get your let's say, you know, your proof of concept, your validation, and then expand to other councils. Is that something that you think would be viable?
Well, Parramatta River is actually an interesting one. It's a good question because Parramatta River is something that we were looking at as well. So I'm currently in talks with King's School to, and potentially signing an MOU with them to be able to roll it out at
Parramatta River.
Lake and Parramatta River.
Right. Yeah. They've got a huge problem with water hyacinth. Perhaps maybe that's something that you could amalgamate with EcoBubble or something.
Especially the area like Meadowbank Ride, Parramatta River in that region, because of the, it's been a comment that's been passed to me as well, particularly because of the mass urban construction in the area. That's been polluting the waterway there, and that's why it's been restricted to no swimming, no fishing, because the water's just that polluted. There is a push to make it swimmable by 2025 and have the marine life in there edible by 2030, or sorry, the aquatic life there edible by 2030. Whether or not they achieve those targets is going to be quite an interesting approach, but it's going to require a lot of cleanup. Sorry.
How do you deploy them on large scale in the field? And importantly, how do you get them back?
So the funny thing actually about EcoBoba is when it fully remediates, it decides to float. I don't know why it does it. It does. And so this is a test that we've done a couple of times. And yeah, so we'll leave them in a vat of wastewater. They'll sink. We'd then leave it for a while, we come back, and then when they fully remediate, they just start floating up. And it's this really cool piece of tech. So we went, okay, cool, we can then take them out, chuck them in salt water, rinse and repeat.
And you get 100% back?
Sorry?
Do you get 100% of them?
Because they're all stuck in the mesh bag.
Okay, interesting.
Hi, so your research to date is just in tanks. We haven't had any scaled experiments yet?
I haven't done scaled experiments yet. It's just getting the right approvals to be able to put it out into the open. That's probably the biggest limitation I have right now.
Okay, and how does this, obviously it's a wastewater management, but how does it affect the polluted sediments in rivers and ponds?
So by extracting it out of the water, it's a good question. By extracting it out of the water, you've got build up in sediment at the moment. There is actually a map that you can get online for places that that they suggest are swimmable, with a little footnote in the bottom saying that as long as you don't kick the sediment up, it's going to be safe, which kind of indicates that it is going to circulate at some point. So by EcoBoba is what I'm looking at is going to be a long-term remediation procedure. So it's going to be left there for a while to be able to suck up and remediate. In terms of addressing sediment, that means it's going to be having to be left there for quite some time to be able to suck up pollutants.
Okay, so it's entirely possible that this process might be repeated 5 or 10 times.
Correct.
The same, over a period of a few years.
That's right. So in terms of remediating the sediment itself, it's probably going to take years, as my understanding for the actual challenge itself. The only other option is you're scraping it out and then processing it some way, which is the approach that they've tried to do, but that already damages the ocean floor ecosystem or the riverbed ecosystem.
One in the back here, thank you.
Yes.
You mentioned lead. Does this work for other elements as well, like arsenic?
Sorry?
Does this work for arsenic as well, or other contaminants?
Yes. So it works for heavy metals. We've tested 8 common metals or target heavy metals. Arsenic is one of those, and it's shown to be quite positive.
Fantastic.
One last one over here, please.
Hi, thanks. That was an excellent presentation. Just a quick question. Do you have the volume of how many bubbles per volume litres of water and how much remediation they can do?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
The volume, so how many of your little bubbles have to be used per litre of water to remediate it?
So in terms of small scale trials, I tested 10 mils of boba to a quarter of a litre of water. And that's where the results kicked in, where it did a massive reduction in about 15 minutes.
Thank you so much, Albert.
Thank you.
But it's just the start of the journey. All of the teams need your help. Everyone in the room can probably help in some way. And if you can't, please dig into your network and introduce them to someone so that they can get to the next step. We need all of these in market, helping people, helping the world. Please, please help each of these teams out. But can you give one big round of applause for That's it for tonight, but what we're going to do, you can move out, grab some more drinks and nibbles, and we'll clear out some of the chairs so that each team will have a table, and it's much easier for you to come and find them and have a chat. Please do so, but most of all, thank you all so much for supporting us to bring New South Wales to the forefront of algae biotech innovation and growing the algae bioeconomy in Australia. Thank you so much for being here.